Hey everyone, I'm Sam Haymart and you're watching Test Driven TV. This week we are test driving the all-new, completely redesigned 2025 Buick Enclave, the flagship of the Buick brand. It's got fresh styling inside and out, fresh chassis, a new engine. It's completely new. So we're gonna have a good look at it inside and out. We're gonna take it for a drive, and then I'm gonna tell you what I really think. All right, my friends, let's have a look because this is a completely redesigned, brand new from the ground up vehicle that represents the latest, greatest design from Buick. This is an Enclave which is larger than the last generation. It's longer, it's wider, it's got more space inside. And this particular one they've given us is the ST trim grade Sport Touring, which means it's right in the middle between the base model and the top grade Avenir. As tested, we're at $53,000 and some change. And that's because this has quite a few options on it and some expensive ones at that. And you'll see those, and we'll talk about those as we go through our presentation today. The color on this one, a very bright optional color. As you can see, it really shimmers in the sun. As we look at this, you can see that it's got a completely new design profile for Buick. The face of this has sort of a shark's nose profile, the Buick logo on the hood, an all new logo for Buick. The trim on the ST is gloss black everywhere you look. The grille, a very sculpted mesh looking grille, ST logo on it down in the lower bumper. The headlights on this, LED of course, they're actually not those angular looking eyes as it were. Up on the top, those are angular LED signature lighting that you can see daytime and sometimes at night. The headlights actually are down below in the bumper. The wheels on this one are 20-inch alloys as part of this trim grade, gloss black with a machine face. And look at the wheel arch openings here. This is the first Buick that we've seen in quite some time that actually has not circular wheel arches. These actually have more of a squared off squircle design, and I just point that out because it's a first for quite some time. You can see we have gloss black trim on the mirrors, around the windows, ST logo down on the lower doors, and gloss black trim on the lower rockers. Coming back to the rear three-quarter view, up on the top you can see this has got some gloss black roof rack mounts up there so that you can put all manner of crossbars and accessories if you want to go camping, skiing, anything like that. A million things out there in the aftermarket that you can attach up there, and those are standard. The rear design I think is pretty sharp here. It's got some nice sculpting and a shoulder line. These LED taillights are like nothing I've seen on a Buick before. They're not the expected same old look. They're sharp, they're angular, they've got a little bit of sculpt to them, they pop out at you, and they're very bright at night. In the middle of all that, of course, is the new Buick logo. A lot of gloss black trim, integrated spoiler. This is a power liftgate. As you'd expect at this price, it's just expected, quite frankly. And down in the lower bumper, more of that gloss black plastic down there. But really notable here are those handsome exhaust tips. Look at that, and those are the real deal. They're real. Exhaust blows through them. I know that seems like a silly thing to point out, but so many brands are going to these fake ornaments that fake you out. The Ford Explorer ST we just tested last week had fake exhaust tips on it. Volkswagen, Audi, Mercedes-Benz. It's just become a scourge out there in the design sense. General Motors and Buick have kept it real for you. Stepping inside, the interior of the new Buick Enclave is the most un-Buick interior I think I sat in a long time. Not only is it modern, not only is it maybe a little bit more sporting and mainstream than Buick interiors used to be, but it is also full of all of the latest and quite competitive technology. Straight up front at main stage is this large 30-inch fully integrated cockpit screen. And it's not just some square rectangular thing, it's got some design flair to it with some angles on each end. It's very sort of Jetsons mid-century, and it is seamless all the way across. As you look through the steering wheel, which does have kind of a 1960s Buick vibe to it, it does have paddle shifters, all the controls. You can also see some of the provisions here for the Super Cruise that this vehicle has. The instrument cluster is fully customizable in a number of different ways, and as you move across it, you sort of seamlessly roll right into the infotainment system. There are some controls down here for the HVAC, Some of the more detailed controls are up on the touch screen. The center console in this is another unique design. It is a floating sort of cantilever design with a large storage area down below, backpacks, things for your trip, a purse, and then right here on top of it, a nice place to put your phone with a wireless charger, the volume control for the infotainment system, cup holders. A lot of gloss black though, which is pretty to look at, but it's hard to keep clean. The center console storage is quite large. There is a tray on top, and when you look down inside, that is huge down there. That is big enough for at least 6 tall bottles of water in there. And so it's a nice storage area that augments what's already up front. The seats that I'm sitting in here, while they do look like leather, are not. These are leatherette, which is vinyl. And I got to tell you that they're not quite as cushy as I might have expected from Buick. Like a lot of GM vehicles I've tested lately, they've really been sort of leaning towards a more firm, stiff seat. You feel like you're sitting on these, not in them. You're not sitting down in them and being held. They're comfortable nonetheless, but they are firm and they aren't quite as supportive as we might expect. They are heated here on this particular trim grade, and they are fully power adjustable. Getting back to the second row, this is a 3-row SUV. We have captain's chairs and then the 3rd row seat behind us. As I sit here, you can see I do have plenty of space. These seats are set for my height, about 5'8" with the shoes on that I've got right now. I've got about 4 inches ahead of my knees, and above my head, about 5 to 6 inches of headroom. What I will tell you is that while the seating height here is pretty good, these are very much like the front seats. They are firm, flat seats with not a lot of side support going on. If I put down the fold-down armrest and I'm able to balance myself, I'm good, but there's not a lot of bolstering on these seats to make you feel like you're in them. Just like the front, you're sitting on these seats. Now, access to the 3rd row, pretty easy. The seat slides forward and tilts a little bit and gives you easy access on both the right and the left-hand side. And as you can see back there, there's a pretty good amount of space. It's not a tiny 3rd row. And you can augment the space back there by changing the actual location of these seats. They do adjust both on a slide as well as a recline. When it comes to folding down those 3rd row seats, they're manual seats. You pull the strap, you push them down, and they do provide a nice cargo area back there. Just the same, these captain's chairs can fold down flat, giving you a fully flat deck. And even with the 3rd row seats up, there's a pretty good amount of storage back there for most needs. Underneath that deck is a large storage bin that allows you to put wet, muddy boots in there, other things that you aren't going to need to worry about spilling out. They can really just fit down there. It's a nice deep well. The spare tire is still located back there, but underneath of all that, you can see the directions there. It does take a little bit to get to it, but if you need it, it's there. Stepping back and looking at this interior through a more competitive lens, I have to tell you that this design with the new 30-inch wide screen is pretty slick to look at. It's pretty cool. Getting used to it doesn't take that long. Using it and just living with it every day, it's a pretty nice feature. But this is an interior that also, while it has its levels of versatility here and there, is at $53,000, I think, missing a number of features that some of the other competitors out there offer. There's no sunroof at this price. There's no leather at this price. There's no ventilated seats at this price. And the list goes on. So it's well done. I just think feature-wise and packaging-wise, they could have maybe mixed it up a little more. This interior gets 4 out of 5 stars. The infotainment system here is about 40% of this 30-inch widescreen, and it represents the latest technology from General Motors. It's got a Google backend, which means that it is fully featured Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, wireless, but if you set those aside, it has the Google backend, which allows you functionality like the maps and a number of other built-in applications that don't require you to tether it to your phone. So if you're somebody that doesn't feel like you need to tether your phone to your car every time you get in and out of it, that's a nice set of features. Sirius XM, Bluetooth connectivity, of course, and this does have a Bose 12 speaker audio system. Quite good. One thing it has that I will show you here is a 360-degree monitor, which does have multiple views that you can set. I am a little surprised, though, that they didn't utilize all of the screen space for that function. It's a little bit smaller there. It still works fine, but I would have liked to see them fill that screen a little bit more. Utilizing this, navigating around, using the menus, once you get used to how they've organized it, it's easy to find what you want and it makes sense. I'm very happy with it. This system gets 5 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, finally time to take a drive. And so the first thing I always like to talk about is what's under the hood, because this is an all-new powertrain for 2025. Gone is the old 3.6 liter V6. In is the new 2.5 liter 4-cylinder turbo. It has 328 horsepower, 326 pound-feet of torque, and comes mated exclusively to a new 8-speed automatic transmission. And so it does offer more power and torque than the previous generation V6. Around town, it has plenty of power off the line, and with the paddle shifters, you do have a sporty shifting opportunity if you like to use it. Mashing the pedal brings pretty almost immediate power. You can really hear it though, and that really gets us to the rub, is that while the power's there, well, this thing does make a lot of noise. It is a pretty noisy engine under the hood, and especially around town, you can really hear it cooking. And really, to get into this horsepower, you really need to put your foot into it. Not a bad thing, but you do need to be quite deliberate. But if you do it, the power comes. You just get to hear it. Now this does have a number of, fuel saving measures: direct fuel injection, variable valve timing, and the auto start-stop system, which I mostly turn off most of the time. This is rated by the EPA at 19 city, 24 highway, and 21 MPG combined. In my week with it, I saw about 18 to 19, but the air conditioner's on most of the time here in Phoenix. With the horsepower and torque that this has, along with the chassis, this does have a 5,000 pound tow rating, which is sort of middle of the class. So my final takeaway really for this powertrain is that if you're worried about horsepower and torque being lost by going to the new 4-cylinder over the V6, you won't be disappointed. If you did like the silky smoothness of the V6, you might. This powertrain gets 4 out of 5 stars. Now to ride, drive, and handling. This comes on an all-new chassis that has a number of weight-saving measures. The weight is actually pretty impressive for this vehicle's size. This has a McPherson strut front suspension and a multi-link rear suspension like before, and being in the ST, the ride is pretty firm and choppy. In fact, it's a lot tighter than I would have expected from Buick. And with these larger wheels and lower profile tires, you do really feel every tar strip and bump in the road. Around town, on our speed hump test and speed bumps, the suspension can get a little bit loud and crashy if you hit them too fast. So it's not the quietest, most isolated suspension in the business, but part of this being a firmer suspension does give this pretty good response going around corners and sort of maneuvering this thing around in a way that you wouldn't normally expect a 3-row SUV to do. So it's pretty responsive and sporting, more than I expected, but the trade-offs are a bit of a harsher ride. This chassis gets 4 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, I have to tell you, this being the second Buick that I've tested this year, and really the first group of Buicks that really represent the new design language, the new packaging, the new brand DNA, I have to tell you that I'm really happy with what I'm seeing from the brand. It brings everything that General Motors has been doing with all of their vehicles in terms of feature content, modern design, and packaging, competitiveness, but it also brings sort of a fresh look and feel for Buick. Not round wheel arches. That was the first thing that hit my eye, the new logo, and just some nice coloring and packaging. The sporting trim grade ST that we see on all of the Buicks wasn't something we always used to have. So Buick has really been trying hard for decades to sort of shed that old person's car image that they've always had. And it's been there since I was a kid. I remember growing up in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, and seeing these big gold LeSabres with padded vinyl tops, wire wheel covers, chrome everywhere, velour seats, all of that stuff. And pretty much the only place you would see those cars is in driveways at Sun City. And that has been something that Buick's really been working hard to shed. And in China, they have a completely different image and demographic buying their car, one of the most popular brands in China. In fact, if it were not for China and all the Buicks that are sold there, the brand probably wouldn't exist anymore. It's for that success that we get to still have it in the United States. Whether we like to hear that or not, it's the truth. So, way into the weeds there, we have to talk about value and pricing. So $53,000 and some change on this one, a mid-grade with some options. Frankly, if you're looking at Toyota, Nissan, any of the brands that offer a 3-row SUV in this size class, you're right in the same ballpark. If you're looking at a mid-grade model, you can spend a lot more, you can spend a lot less, but when you get into the mid-grade, the high bandwidth area of the market, you're in the $50,000 range. And so I don't think that price is really uncharacteristic of the ballpark that we're in. Features, this has actually got quite a few features. Yes, it's missing a few things at this price, but this has a few standout things like the sporty feel, the sporty driving experience. It's got the new powerful engine under the hood, which is a lot more powerful than some of the competitors. I'm looking at you, Toyota, unless you go with their high-end hybrids and things like that. So, but this also does not offer a hybrid at this point in time. So there's a lot of different ways that you can measure what's good, what's not, what's appealing to you. When I look at things like warranty coverage, we're right in the middle of the ballpark. Again, not high, not low. Class average. Quality, pretty good. Quality and build, I'm pretty impressed with this. So I put value here at 4.5 out of 5 stars. When you put that in with everything we talked about, we're at 4.3 stars for the total review score. Pretty good. So there you go, the 2025 Buick Enclave, the flagship of the Buick line in the United States. So if you like what we do, you can see our latest video right there. Better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel and see more right down there. Either way, stay tuned.